Welcome to Look, Listen, Laugh. Now, I'm excited to have Simon Kennedy on today's episode. And if you don't recognize the name, guaranteed you've heard his voice. He's an award-winning voiceover artist. He's a fantastic comedian. He's a published author and an all-round great guy. I'm looking forward to having a chat with Simon Kennedy. Well, Simon.
Hey.
It's always funny when starting these too, you know. It's like, I always start on the person's name. I've noticed it's been a consistent thing with each of these episodes.
It's a good idea.
I say the person's name out of the gates and then we're off.
Or say someone else's name.
Yeah.
That's always great.
Gertrude.
And I'll just be like, hey.
Right, yeah.
It's awkward.
The last time we saw each other, you were taking off like a day later to Los Angeles. And we were talking about, you were nominated for the Voiceover Arts Awards for Best International Body of Work Voiceover Artist.
Something that's close to it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And we were talking about award nights and how awards can be they can be skewed at times for different, you know, and we were sort of, just chatting about like Billboard Awards and Grammy Awards and all that kind of stuff. And you took off over there for a conference and the big award night. Yeah.
Well, I went there for the awards, and I went, well, if I'm going for the awards, I'll go for the conference too.
Right.
It's a long way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I'd known some of your work, not only with stand-up comedy, but with voiceover work, hearing you on numerous different either commercials or cartoons or projects. And then I was so elated when I saw that you had won.
I was pretty elated. I was surprised. Because you're right, like with awards, you kind of go, well, I don't know, it's not my time. I'm a middle-aged white man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and
I'm not ticking any boxes
here.
Yeah,
I could. That could sound very cynical, but I also think that's okay because middle-aged white men have just kind of run the show for a long time, you know. And this was an international award, so I was kind of prepared for the fact that, you know what, it's fine. Then I won, and someone else at the awards who was a judge said, well, it's a voice arts awards, and your photograph isn't in front of the judges. No one knows who you are or what you look like.
Point, yes.
All they know is what you sound like, and that's what the award is for. And he said, so whoever's judging, unless they know you, they don't know you. So
that's a great point. That in a way, those awards are probably the most fair judged awards of any, really.
I guess so. Look, I'd like to think so because I won. If
you didn't win it, they knew.
I only win and go, it's rigged. It's all rigged. No, it was great. What an experience too. That hopefully, opens some doors. We'll see.
Sure. Well, you've been a professional voiceover artist for over 20 years now. As well as a professional comedian. So
I started in the voice land because I started in radio when I was in my early 20s, and I started mucking around. I always loved playing with my voice. Always, that was the thing I really enjoyed, and weirdly enough, that kind of coupled with making people laugh as well.
Right.
So they're very
natural progression.
Yeah, very much so. So I did that. I started in radio, and then I left my country radio gig in the bush because I was sick of living in the bush.
Sure.
And I wanted to come back where the action was. And I came back and I went, you know what? Radio's great, and I do love radio, but I'm not hearing the immediate reaction from the crowd. Mm-hmm. I could make a really funny radio sketch, and it'd be great.
It's like doing a Zoom gig.
It is like doing a Zoom gig. You just got to go out and go, this is funny, and let's go for it. Mm-hmm. And I hope everyone enjoys it. But then I got this feeling I wanted to hear it right away. So that's when I started doing stand-up comedy.
Right.
So radio I first went into professionally in 1996, and then comedy I started in 1999, so a few years later.
Right. And when you say regional, you have to go off and pay your dues, in some regional town initially, right?
Unless you're lucky enough to score a gig in a good place.
Right.
I mean, that place I went to was great. It was Moree, which is northwest
sure.
New South Wales. And
it goes off in the summertime, holiday crowd.
Man, it does. A lot of Russians in the artesian baths. But it was a good experience for an urban kid
Sure.
to go and experience country life, like really how it is, you know, regional life, people who live on the land, people where the sun's shining and it's a clear day. In the city, everyone goes, what a beautiful day. And in Moree, they're going, God, we need some rain.
Right.
You know, it's not a beautiful day. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
So yeah, a very, very, very great experience. But a good way to kick things off as a young bloke.
But how did you feel? I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. Like when you went to like a commercial radio station like Nova, the politics of it all. You know, because when years ago, our mutual friend Akmal Salih, he got the drive time on Nova, and he was meant to be doing it with Bert Newton's son. And
problematic kid.
Yeah. And the day before, I remember it was on a Sunday. They dropped him because all these allegations came out about him spousal abuse.
There was a lot going on.
So he was thrown out. I get a call from Akmal saying, "Listen, they've asked me who do they want to co-host it with me," and I said you. And because Akmal and I had done a lot of touring together, we got along great, and I said, yeah, all right, yeah, I'll go. I'd never done it before, didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I went in that first day, and beforehand, the producer came up to me and said, listen, this is Akmal's show, you're just the stand-in, so you know, let him go. Don't interrupt him, don't talk over him, you know, just speak if he refers to you. And okay, yeah, sure. And he gave me the whole induction into the Nova way of thinking. Like I remember he had this whole folder and he's going through going, now this is what we stand for, all the mission statements. And I'm like, okay. So that day, you know, I thought, well, this guy's the head honcho, I better do what he's saying, you know. And then afterwards, I was like, what's going on? And I'm like, what? He goes, because we did like a Q&A in the show when we were touring together, the live. And
why aren't you talking?
Yeah, why aren't we doing this normal backwards and forwards? Like it's like you're holding back. And I said, well, this is what it is. He goes, forget that guy, forget what he said. Tomorrow, let's just do us, you know. Yeah. And so we did that. After that, he comes in. 100% improvement on yesterday's show, guys. Fantastic.
From ignoring his advice.
Yeah, and that, I learned a big lesson there. It's like, do what you instinctively feel, like creatively, as opposed to.
I think that's the thing. There's so many people who run the show, you know, at various levels in radio and TV, and probably the same in the film industry,
right? Who
absolutely have no idea.
Right.
Like they're there because they're good at business, they're good at doing all that business stuff, and all of a sudden they're making decisions about creativity. And you go, well, why? It's because they've just hung around a while. Like most guys who are program or content directors at radio stations, mostly are guys who weren't entertaining enough as on-air announcers. But they kind of knew a little bit about this and that. Sorry to
burst the bubble.
A lot of the guys I worked with, but a lot of guys who were failed announcers.
Yeah.
Or failed, but just got a better pay packet.
Sure.
And TV. Oh my God, so many people in TV who could not create anything. Yeah. They're lawyers or whatever, you know. So you do have to know whose advice to take, don't you?
How to navigate
and how to ignore it.
Yes.
Or how to make them think you're taking
politely
their advice.
Ignore it. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and then not do it.
Yeah. Or when you have a good idea, you put it forward. No, that's not good, and then later on they come up with that great idea. Let's go with that.
Yeah. It's all like massaging the egos and stuff like that. And I've always, someone told me this once, and they said, what we're in it's show business, right? And there are people who are good at show, and there are people who are good at business. Know which one you are. If you're both, then you're very lucky. There are some people who can do both. Sure. I'm not one of them, but I'm no good at business.
Which usually, that's usually how it goes too. It's like you don't see the most creative minds that are crunching numbers and knowing how to manipulate the market and, or how to create something that the market wants. It's like, just do what you do, and if it resonates, great.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
That's right. Don't let anyone tell you how to be you.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
It's interesting because you look at people, but that doesn't mean that they won't be successful to those people. I've heard very well recognized musicians or singer, I guess. I remember once I was watching this this interview, and he said, I write I perform. He doesn't really write his own music, but anyway, he's like, whenever I'm in the studio, I'm thinking, what does the fan want? That's what I think. And he goes, and any artist that tells you opposite is a liar. And I thought, so what? You're going to say that Tom Waits, Dylan, Leonard Cohen, all these, these great, or the Beatles, all these great minds that are thinking, I'm writing that. No. So they're lying? No, I don't buy it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess there are people like that. They're almost like, they're like influencers. Where it's kind of, what's the algorithm looking for?
Yeah.
When you start making content for the algorithm, you're making content for the algorithm. You're not an artist as such, are you? Right. Like you're kind of like, leaning into some sort of popular, sort of zeitgeist.
No, it's true. It's like you're creating your identity on what you think others are wanting, or how a system works, which just creates bland.
Yeah,
you're not getting anything inventive, anything extraordinary or risky, or
like it's funny. I mean, I'm not by any stretch famous, and I think that I'm okay with that. Like I could probably take a few routes that would probably, make me, more well known. Sure. A lot of those might be controversial sort of points on whatever it is,
Sure.
Whether you want to lean into the, misogyny, or you want to lean into a little bit of old school racism or whatever. And it's not something I can do because I can't look at myself.
It's not you naturally, anyway.
It's not me.
So it's not.
And I don't want to come home and have my kids know that about me.
Yeah.
And they go, you know what, Dad's he's not racist, but he says racist things.
Yeah.
I just do it for the money.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah,
and I'd
sure.
rather be me.
Sure.
And just make people laugh, and then they forget my name.
But it's putting out quality work. That's what I always feel like. The focus should be put out quality, and if it lands like on I've seen you. It's funny. You and I used to work a lot together when we were like years ago, on the road, But when you get to that headliner thing, then you never really work together anymore, right? It's like when you're middling and emceeing, you're always working together more often than later on. But I always love watching your act because you came through in the work, which is always important, I think, for a good comedian. To have, you can see the person in the work as opposed to them pretending to be something else.
Right.
But even when you were pretending to be someone else, it was hilarious. Like my favorite bit was the SBS the SBS announcer, which was so niche as well. Yeah.
It was one of those things. It was a bit that I don't really do anymore because for those playing at home, the voiceover that came before movies on SBS, which warned you of the content, and the guy who did that work on SBS for many, many years was a guy called Robbie McGregor, and Robbie's a fantastic bloke. He's a great voice artist, still going strong. He's awesome. But Robbie his voice was so iconic.
Yes.
And he was also known from H.G. and Roy's show as the voice of King Wally Otto, I think, on Triple J. And Robbie is a fantastic actor, and he's got a wonderful way of speaking. And he sounds like this, and I do this whole thing about the SBS voiceover guy. And because that was a very identifiable voice in this country, and it was very specific to that particular thing, whenever I did that bit, people were like, oh my God, yes, that's it. Impersonating someone that no one would ever think to impersonate.
Right. That's what was brilliant about it. He wasn't some mainstream, he's on an Australian network that's, it's like what would you say? It's not like ABC, it's a cultural kind of
well, especially
network.
20 odd years ago, SBS was, I always just used to think, SBS, it stands for Special Broadcasting Service,
right?
Which was meant to cater to ethnic groups in Australia,
right?
Predominantly. But I always said it stood for South Park, Boobs and Soccer,
right? Yeah.
Which is kind of a lot of what they showed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a niche thing, but everyone knew what it was.
Right. Even I would tell like friends who hadn't seen your act about you doing that bit, And then when you told me about how he came up to you at the cafeteria, wasn't it, at SBS?
Well, actually, no, he rang me.
Oh, he
rang me because he is Robbie's a great voiceover artist and he does a lot of commercial work as well.
Right.
Like you'll hear him everywhere doing various voiceovers. And he worked with someone at Nova doing a voiceover.
Right.
And this guy goes, "Hey, you know, Kennedy takes the piss out of you on stage in his thing." He goes, and I think he's got a great sense of humour about it. He rang me. I was driving down the Warringah Freeway, and I missed the call, but there was a voicemail, so I'm listening to this voicemail. And he goes, "Kennedy, Kennedy." This is McGregor here. He says, "I've heard you're taking the piss out of my voice. I just want you to know I've got some friends who are very large tow truck drivers."
That's great.
And I'm just like, oh my God.
It's funny because a friend of mine, Michael, who I spoke to yesterday, he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "I'm doing a podcast and I'm recording one." He said, "Oh, who's your guest?" And I just went, "Kennedy." And because I had told him that story before, how he came up to you. And
God, I haven't done it for a while.
Yeah.
I'd better bring it back.
That's a great bit. But the great thing about what you do too as a voiceover artist is there was a guy that does, I think he does a lot of the, I don't even know his name, which is the point I'm getting to.
That's how it works.
He's like one of the busiest guys in Hollywood, doing so much voiceover work for the DreamWorks films.
Yeah, right.
And he's like one of the highest paid too, but he can walk down the street and no one knows who he is.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's got to be the best job in Hollywood, to have that, to be totally anonymous, walking down the street, but having such an impact on the Hollywood scene. You know?
It's great because you can create something people love, and they really get something out of it. But then, like you say, you can be unbothered by people.
Mm-hmm.
Like my kids are both actors. They're young teens, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to be famous?" I'm like, "Not really.
Right.
I don't really want to be. I don't want to be famous. I want people to love what I do, and I think fame can be a byproduct of that. Like I'd love to be able to fill theatres,
right?
And you can't do that without being famous. But I don't want to be famous.
Right, I'm 100% with you on that.
I just want to fill theatres because people love my work, or I just want people to love my work. Character voices, whatever it is that I do.
Right.
One of the most fun things I for a while before Disney Plus, there was Disney Junior channel,
right.
And before that it was called Playhouse Disney, and I did voice for a character that was did all the links for Playhouse Disney. These two monkeys. There was Oo and Ah. So I was Oo, the blue monkey, and Ah was another fine young Australian actor who is now gone on to directing series. He's fantastic. But the point being is I did this character. And I was like, is a monkey who's like, "Hey, I'm Oo, the blue monkey. Yeah. Oh, what's coming up next on Playhouse Disney?" And a friend of mine who lived in Brisbane, his daughters always watched it.
Right.
And he rings me. He goes, "Oh, it's they were twins." He goes, "It's twins' birthday. Can Oo give them like a birthday call?"
Yeah.
And I'm on the phone to these
and
little
you
girls
just SMS your Cameo link.
Yeah, that's right. You have to pay. I mean, probably I was contractually obliged not to do that, but I did it. And so I rang him, "Hey guys,
Great.
happy birthday!"
Would have made their day.
"Oh my God!" And he was like, "Oh my God, that just meant so much."
Yeah.
And that was like, that's cool to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a kid, you're so impressionable. You know, it's like
Yeah.
to have that, to have the monkey wishing you happy birthday. That's like the ultimate.
And I don't look like a blue monkey. That's the thing. I could get away with it.
Yeah.
I walk down the street, but so that's cute. That stuff's great.
Yeah, and to be able to then, getting back around to the award, to have had 20 years worth of voiceover work and to be acknowledged for it in that way. And I saw all the other awards that you got there in your office, but it's great to get that recognition after that amount of time too.
And also for me, I think the biggest buzz is from sort of an international panel of judges made me feel kind of good, because you go through this world doing what you do. And sometimes you go, does anyone care? Does anyone think I'm any good? I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, you know that you're good at what you do, but sometimes you're like, I don't know. And in your own backyard, sometimes you can feel like everyone takes you for granted or whatever. So if you go, you know how Australia is. It's like as soon as something happens overseas, they go, oh yeah, he's one of ours.
Oh yeah. He's
you go, well, what about last week?
Yeah. It's so true. It reminds me of my dad telling me when I was a kid about when Far Lap won the Kentucky Derby. Because it was so late at night, they didn't have time to print the front page of the newspaper. So there were two different plates. One, Australia's Far Lap wins the Kentucky Derby, and the second was New Zealand's Far Lap loses the Kentucky Derby.
That's it. And there's the Russell Crowe factor.
The Mel Gibson, we don't need to mention he's born in the States, he's Australia's own.
Australia's own.
Yeah. Until he starts, going off the handle at police officers.
Yeah, calling them sugar tits.
Yeah.
Which apparently that's not okay.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Which if it was in Australia, it would have been, come on, Mel.
Get out of here, you crazy kid. Yeah. Oh, some of the best Australians were born overseas.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the thing that you said before that is interesting, like I find about fame and what have you. That's why I'm so appreciative at my level when someone comes up, if you're in the street or you're somewhere at a cafe and they say, hey, I love your work, I saw your thing, blah, 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 yada, yada. It really means something to me when they say, because they're not going to someone to say, hey, I met Joel Osborn, There's no cachet involved in that, right? Whereas they're genuinely coming up to share that with you. And that I always find means a lot more than just, like if someone says that, they met Dave Chappelle or something. Yeah, it's great, but they're kind of, because it's Dave Chappelle,
But do they love his work?
Yeah.
Or are they just saying, I met someone famous? Yeah.
Right.
It's true. I appreciate that the most. I think the most feedback I get from the public is probably not off comedy and certainly not a voiceover because no one knows who's doing it. It's such an anonymous thing. It's probably from my book that people have read. And then they'll message me through my social media or whatever and they'll say, I read the book, it meant something to me. And that gives me a little lift in my heels all day.
Of course.
Because someone's
engaged.
Personal too. Very personal.
Yes.
It's I won't talk about when people said, I don't like your book. Or once, I think. But
really? You had someone...
Someone said, I thought you were a bit political in your book. I'm like, well, yeah.
But that's what I loved about the book is you didn't hold back or pull any punches in sharing your views. And you did it in a very humane way too. It wasn't like you were getting on your high horse to say, this is my views and you will, this is why people should think this. It came from a very, like I said, humane place. It wasn't politicized or you weren't going for an angle. You were saying this is who I am and this is what I believe.
Yeah, and that's right. And I think people have their reasons for why they think things as well. And and it doesn't mean that if someone's got if someone's a bit on the racist side, and I say a bit on the racist side, I mean they have some fears and prejudices about groups because they don't have an understanding of them. Mm-hmm. And there's also maybe some historical thing that happened with them. And I'm like, their belief system, I don't agree with it and I don't think it's great. But you can't just, jump on people and go, if you do this, you're an idiot. If you do this, you've got to kind of say, look, I understand why you might have come to that and why, but you need to consider other things. You need to, you've got to be gentle.
Yes.
I think. You can't, and that's what people face to face, you can try and understand the person and then maybe talk them around. Mm-hmm. Online, it's not even possible.
No. In little short grabs, it's,
It's us and them.
Which is, it's so divisive.
But a book, you can.
Well,
it's long form and you can say, just come with me, understand me.
Sure.
And then you might not be so jarred by my opinions.
Sure.
That sort of thing,
Obviously, I've read the book, I know the book, but for anyone watching or listening that doesn't know, the story is about your mother who unfortunately, lost her life in the 9/11 attacks, and the way that you're able to just communicate your story and her story and make it accessible to all. It's not just a one point of view. It's like you take in the views of who would do something like this. Like when you're in Guantanamo Bay and you're face to face with the terrorists that did this, but you were able to try and understand why, like that they've essentially fucked up their own lives in doing this, and they have families, and what their families now have to go to through as a result of their actions. It was like, it wasn't just a clear-cut black and white take that you had on it. And
no, and I don't know why I came to that. No, yeah, I think it's because maybe that was my upbringing. I think that sort of like the scope on humanity was something I grew up with, because that was my mother. Like she worked with the Australian Red Cross, and she was all about helping people, and those, like the Red Cross has these core values, and and one of a lot of those things, to break it down, like impartiality and neutrality, and it's basically, you look at the conflicts in the world at the moment, and the Red Cross, an organisation like that, their ethos is kind of what everyone should be, in a sense, is that if someone needs help, no matter what religion, creed, colour, you help them. No matter what side of the fight they're on, if they're injured, they need to be looked after, or if whatever. And that's sort of what I grew up hearing. And so it had to seep in at some point.
And witnessing too. It's one thing to say, to tell your kids something, right? But your mother showed by example, like the great part of the book where your mother saw someone on the side of the road covered in blood. Her first instinct, and it's you and your brother Lee in the back of the car, first instinct is to pull over and run to this guy's aid.
Yeah.
Right? And to witness that as children, to see that, it's, like the fact that your mother's, talk the talk but walk the walk is, I found that throughout the whole book too. Like from in 1985 when your father passed away, the fact that the devastation that your mother had through that, and you were exposed to that, but then also exposed to the way that she was able to handle that and move forward. Which is learning by observation at such a young, impressionable age. Like that leaves, that's something that you carry on in your life, which you clearly did, like in the book, which is here, which. I got this, I ordered it on Amazon, and I got the latest edition. The title of your book, 9/11 and the Art of Happiness.
Yeah, so originally it came out in 2014, and then in lockdown, plenty of time on my hands, I'm like, you know what, I think that, because I'd been to Guantanamo Bay to sit in and witness some of the hearings for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and some of the other accused, who he was what they call the architect of 9/11, and that experience was so profound. I felt I had to add that in, because I'd spent time with other family members, which I'd never done.
Sure.
Like sitting down I had a week with 5 other 9/11 family members who I'm still in contact with now, and that was such a great experience. One I'd been avoiding. I didn't because I didn't want to be, even though I wrote the book, I didn't want to only be a 9/11 guy. I didn't I kind of felt I was worried about being kind of like Stuart Diver with the Threadbow tragedy. That he was always associated with that tragedy. I didn't want to be the poster boy for 9/11 in this country, but then eventually you go, I've got a story and I just need to tell this story, and I'll have to wear whatever it is. But fortunately, it hasn't. I'm not the 9/11 guy.
Yeah,
so,
sure. Well, you had so much more before leading into that.
And I left it a
while. But you gave it time too. It's like it wasn't something like you rushed into out of the gates, or actually the opposite to being an opportunistic person to present yourself that way. Like the way that you talk about in there, like trying to avoid the media and the journalists that would come up and knock on your door and then wait around. And
I avoided that because we did. So when this came out, it was a big thing to do it because we'd been so private.
Yes.
I wanted that for the family, for my brother, you know, to grieve privately. So, but then, you know, when you're a storyteller, eventually you go, look, this is such a story. I need to get it out. And I wasn't gonna do it as a stand-up comedy show.
Sure.
It just felt like wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah.
But in saying that though, as a one-man show, you know, which, you know, I see, like, as I was reading through this too, like, you know, I could hear your voice obviously coming through in this and talking about it, and not to say that it anyway would be capitalizing on the story, but I see you so much in this story, which I see working as a one-man show. You know, like it's an incredible story to tell, but. And yes, 9/11 is a main theme in it, but the main theme I got out of it is the lessons that your mother left for you, which you clearly live by, you know?
Try to, yeah.
Yeah, sure, which is there. And so that's the perfect thing too. You don't, yes, I do live by it. It's like, no, I tried, which is the honesty that comes through in these pages, you know? Of you saying, you know, at times you felt this, or your relationship with at your time your girlfriend Tani, who you ended up marrying, and there were moments of tension in that from this situation. Totally understandable, but the fact that not everything is easy, not everything is smooth sailing, but you try your best and you try to put your best foot forward
every day.
Yeah,
because every day. Someone said it the other day. I don't know. It might have been my daughter. She might have found it on Instagram. I don't know. But it was the quote was that people who say you only live once are wrong. They say you only die once, and you live every day. Like, it is every day you decide, you know, what you're going to be. Some days you don't do a great job, but every day you decide: am I going to be a good person? Am I going to be kind? Am I going to be happy? Or am I going to be grateful for what I got? Or am I going to just be like, I don't have enough. I never have enough. I want more. You know.
Sure.
And that's the decision. It's a daily decision. You know.
Sure.
Yeah. It can become tacit knowledge after a while if you keep making a good habit of not being someone who's unsatisfied. Then you'll get really good at being grateful. Yeah.
Sure.
You know, it's just habit.
Yeah.
So
another thing that I felt in this too is surrounding yourself with the right people too. You know, like Tani was such a bedrock for you during that time, and like with your mother, like, you know, when your father passed, her parents moved nearby, your grandparents nearby to help out, and when you were talking with the other family members of the victims of the 9/11, you were able to give each other support as well. And when you caught up with that, what was it? Was it Jeff? Was his name? No, what was his name? Who was you caught up at Wynyard with him? So Jeff Tomsett, his brother Stephen, was killed in the towers. So he was one of only 10 Australians who died in 9/11. And when I met Jeff to sit down and we had a chat. So when I say I didn't have much contact, ongoing contact, but when I sat down with Jeff and spoke about his experience with his brother and his family and the whole 9/11 experience from a surviving family member, it's so refreshing to know that you're not the only one, to know that there are commonalities there, and that there are other people out there who also aren't hungry for revenge as well. Yes, yeah, that connection that you guys had in not knowing each other but having the same outlook on it was.
Yeah, and Jeff, I believe, is a deeply religious guy.
Yes.
My faith is mediocre, but I think humanity transcends religion. So you can be Buddhist, Muslim, you can be Jewish, you could be Christian, you could be an absolute atheist, whatever, but you can still have humanity at your core and feel the same way about things in general. So it's always good to meet someone who you're like, yes, you know? It's great.
Totally, and also having. The thing that I also really resonated in this is don't carry the weight. You know, like the resentment for the terrorists that did this. It's like you're not carrying the weight of hatred or the hate or the anything vindictive against them, and that is such a huge in general in life, you know.
Oh yeah,
like
jealousy, resentment, hatred for other people. They're heavy burdens. They are awful things to carry, and I think maybe I stuck in the book a great quote that no one knows who to attribute it to. People say it was Buddha. I don't know, maybe it was Jeff Bezos. I don't know, but it was the quote being that if you carry hatred for somebody, for someone else, if you hold on to hatred for someone else, it's like you swallowing poison and expecting them to die.
Yeah.
It's like, it's what it is. Like, if you hate someone, and you're like, oh, that guy sucks so bad. I hate everything he does. Why does he get all these opportunities? I hate that. He doesn't even know that you're having this. It's got no effect on him. So what are you doing? You're just stewing in misery. It's like, stop it.
Sure.
Move on.
Sure.
Let it go.
Yeah.
His path's his path, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you can't control it.
But it's for you to be able to say that, having lived it and know that that's what you feel to be the best outcome, is something I find today. So many people say things because they've read it in a book or they've seen a Facebook post and they just regurgitate it, or they heard it on a podcast, they regurgitate. But when people live it, like when your mum would help people, right? Yeah. She was living that, right? Yeah. With what you've gone through and experienced, and for you to be able to say that you've lived it, you're living it, which means, to me, means a world of difference than someone like today just regurgitating information. You know?
I think so. Like, I know that I could be more generous with my time. I know I could be more just generous overall. I could be better at that. I know that, but I don't kick myself over it, because sometimes I go, well, to be normal and to have a good outlook on life, I've kind of had to juggle a lot of things along the way. So I'm not going to punish myself for not being perfect. Well, none of us are. Yeah. So I try to remember to be better when I can. But do I turn my head and walk away from the charity muggers, outside Woolworths? Often. Yeah,
sure. We keep a wide berth.
I can't give money to every koala and flying doctor there is. I can't do it all. Sure. But as long as I'm being a better person, generally speaking. Sure.
But that's what I love in this book. It's like you're very honest with your thoughts on things and the way that you feel about, and not making any apology for it. It's refreshing to read that. Whereas with someone writing a book like this, they could err on the side of wanting to present themselves as being the grand all and knowing everything and but you're very open to sharing shortcomings, and which makes it that much more endearing and more human.
Well, I mean, I could have written like one of those football tell-alls where the redemption book, where I did a lot of bad stuff, but now here I am, and
this is what I've learned along the way.
I could do that. I'm still learning, and I think people love a redemption story. Like, the only thing better than a saint in this country is a saint who used to be a sinner. Like, everyone loves
the fallen angel who got their wings,
who came back. People love that. Now, what about people who've always been good? Right. Boring.
Yeah, no one wants to know. But you ain't winning an Australia's Got Talent on that, or an Idol. No,
I actually think there should be a reality show like called Australia's Got Sob Stories.
Yeah.
And the only person who wins, not the most talented, is the one with the best sob story.
Yeah, totally.
And my wife and I were joking about that. Like, I mean, from her upbringing, there are things in her history and my history, and most of that's in the book. She goes, God, if we went on a reality show, we'd kill it with the sob stories.
Totally.
I'm like, yeah. I said, if only I was a better singer, I could get up there. Singing's secondary.
But it becomes like that old Monty Python sketch, like, you had it bad, we had it bad.
Oh, you're
luxury to live like that. Yeah, but it does become like that, like who can top each other's, sob story.
Yeah,
or,
it's misery porn. And people.
But I like it. You can just walk into the room and go,
there it is. Just read that if you've got the time. Or there's an audio book you can just listen.
Yeah, you can listen to it. Yeah, either or. Yeah.
No, but and everything that I these days I take into my comedy. It changed the way my comedy works as well. Like I feel really dirty if I say something on stage I can't get behind.
Right.
If I
you can't stand behind it.
If I can't stand behind it, like it's got to be funny.
Yes.
I want to entertain these people, but I can't lie to the point.
Sure,
Like I can lie. I do lie.
Yeah.
I take a whole bunch of stories, jam them into one, and it's not necessarily true. But I can't represent someone I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, if I say something that's a little on the questionable side or problematic's the word we use these days.
Right.
There's going to be a twinkle in my eye where you know that I think that's not the way people should be.
Sure.
Like if I do something, you know, that's a little bit ironic, you know, an ironic joke, you'll see it.
Yeah.
You won't go, oh, he's racist, is he? Or oh, is he a bit sexist or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, you know that I know this is
yeah,
bad.
this is wrong, but it's comedic.
And that's what I'm,
I'm doing it for comedy purpose, yeah. And you would think the audience is intelligent enough to know that too.
Sometimes
you know?
they are. And,
but the honest stuff is always like, there's a part, I just laughed out loud reading it when you're at the Pentagon and Obama, it was during the day, and you're about to meet Obama, and you had a relative there who she was hot, so she took off her jacket, and you said to her, look, would you like me to hold the jacket? And then after that, it gave you in a monologue of saying, I was hoping that she wouldn't accept. and I laughed out loud. It's just such a great moment of, you know, when we all think that. It's like, I want to present myself as being accommodating and nice, but then, shit, they took me up on the offer.
It's like, no, I'm going to hold this damn jumper.
You're in the wool and too going, wool was the worst choice to...
Oh, my God.
You're you know, you're about to meet, you know, Barack Obama.
Yeah.
You're there for to represent on your mother's behalf, but there's still that comedic edge there in all of that.
I'm still flawed.
Yeah.
I mean, I still.
but
I don't want to hold an old woman's jumper in like 30-degree heat in the sun.
In the garden in the Pentagon.
Yeah, I was thinking, where can I throw this?
Yeah.
She said yes. No, I don't want it. No, yeah.
But just moments like that, just an honest, you know, which is great, you know, and that's where you know this is an honest reaction, which makes for great comedy, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think that's the best thing about comedy. You know, I remember someone. He was like a script doctor from the US. He like fixes scripts, film scripts.
Right.
And I did this course with this guy once, and as someone who'd been a comedian for a very long time, I'm thinking, I know comedy. I know what comedy is. And he goes, what's comedy? And someone yells something out. Someone, he goes, no. And he goes, is comedy, is slipping on a banana peel comedy? And everyone's going, yeah. And he goes, no, it's not. It's not comedy. Go, it's a catalyst for comedy. He goes, you know what comedy is? The people watching that. That's funny.
Yeah.
There's people who see it and pretend they didn't see it. That's comedy.
Yes.
The people who sort of, you know, react in some shocked way. That's that's the comedy. It's not.
Sure.
It's not that. It's not the guy walking into the restaurant with his penis hanging out.
Right.
I mean, it's funny, but the comedy is people pretending they can't see it. People going.
Which was the genius of like The Office, you know, when Ricky Gervais' David Brent character would do something, and then it would just be this slight little pan to the
Jim
reaction.
Or whatever, to whoever's going.
Yeah. And that's where the laughter is.
Yeah.
In that, so yeah.
Yeah, it's the in-between bits. And when I was working on the radio at Nova, my job there was to create content that sort of sat across the radio station all day, in between all the songs. And people say, what do you do? And I say, well, okay, if it's a song, a DJ, an ad, or the news, that's not me. I'm everything else.
Right.
So the little bits between that gave personality. They call it imaging or whatever, but the way that it was back in the day, when I was there, imaging on that radio station was personality, like and I'd make mini comedy skits that would drop in between. It was all
Right.
that made up the personality of this station. Something you don't really hear much anymore. Now it's just like more hits and better of them.
Yeah.
But I'd do that, and what I would do is I would make a little comedy skit. I would do a little thing, and when you would think it was over, it's not over. It's over, after da 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 punchline. Yeah. Anyway, and then it's over. That's the bit after the punchline.
Yeah, that little extra.
Yeah. And that's the awkwardness of life that made it more real. Otherwise, it was just super contrived, and the real comedy comes in. The personality comes in the reaction to the thing.
Sure.
Not just the punchline.
Yes.
It's what happens after the punchline, how you react to the punchline, how you deal with that.
Yeah.
I think that's where the gold is.
Sure. Yeah, but it's relatable too. Everyone can relate to those moments.
Yeah, like in comedy, you'd call it your second punchline or
the tag.
The extra bit. But I cherish those.
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah. Well, that leads us on to the people who had great sense of humour, which were four guys from Liverpool.
Funny, very funny, all of them.
Yeah, four from Liverpool, which is interesting. People I find on this podcast their favourite things tend to be from their childhood or earlier on in life. So I assume that your favourite album, which is none other than
Abbey Road.
Abbey Road.
The album. Here's the thing, right? When I was a kid, it would have been about 1985, I reckon, that when my dad died, I started getting into music. So I was about 10. And what I used to do is to go to my mum and dad's record collection, because I didn't have one. And they had a record called The Essential Beatles. It was like a compilation.
Oh, was that was that not the white? No, sorry, not the white. The red and blue album.
Oh no! This was like just a compilation. That,
okay.
I guess Apple Records had made, but it was like a bit from here and a bit from there.
Okay.
And it was weird, like trying to create something called the Essential Beatles. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty good mix, and I listened to that. I put headphones on and I listened to this record, and there were certain things that just made me go, "Oh my God, this is great!" And the Beatles with headphones on is amazing, and that got me into it. And I had a bit of this and a bit of that, and then I started delving deeper into other Beatles stuff and getting into it. And it's hard to pick a favourite Beatles album.
Yeah,
it's really hard. Like Sgt. Pepper's is such a great album. The White Album, such a great album. But what
Revolver.
Oh my God, they're all great. But what I like about Abbey Road is I feel like it's got a little bit of everything that's Beatles. It's got you got your Ringo song, you got your Octopus's Garden, right? Yeah. You got your I'd like to be. So it's got that, which I would call almost like the Octopus's Garden. And like Yellow Submarine, both.
I used to, when I was a kid, I'd always confuse those two.
And they're both under the water.
Yes.
They're both Ringo.
Yeah.
It feels to me like if the Beatles were to doing a Wiggles, that they would be the things, right? They were like for kids songs in a way.
Yeah.
So you got one of those on here. You've got a great George track on there.
With Something.
Something is beautiful, right? George Harrison. I've heard people say they reckon he's their favourite Beatle. I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to, he was my mum's favourite Beatle, but he never, like, come on, he's the younger of the group, and when you're that young, when you know each other that young, that kind of age gap always remains. Like, he's only like a year or two younger, but he
was the little guy.
Yeah.
If I had to pick a favourite Beatle, Paul's my favourite Beatle.
Yeah.
All right. A lot of people are like, what? I'm like, I don't care what you think.
Paul's great.
Yeah. They're all, and there's no Beatles without one of them. Like they're all, and this album's just, it's got it all. Like it's got kickbacks to the 50s. Style rock, like Oh Darling and all that stuff. It's got that. Yes. They love that black rock and roll. Yeah. And it has a bit of that in there. And then the trippy stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like Mean Mr. Mustard or Wacky
that
Polythene Pam and all that.
Yes. And that medley where they just link in like Golden Slumbers and Carry the Weight, and just the transition of those coming together. It's beautiful.
And that's the thing. It feels like it's something you listen to all the way through, and
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, but besides, you know, flipping it over at one point, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
It's so good. And
But out of the gates, we've come together too.
Oh my
It's
God.
like, yeah, just hit the ground running. Yeah, ding, 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 ding.
So good. I'm just looking at, and also Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Yeah.
If there's ever a Beatles song that I want them to make a movie of, it's Maxwell's Silver Hammer. I think it would be the greatest serial killer movie of all time. I can just see it.
Yeah.
And I love, and the one thing about Maxwell's Silver Hammer, I love how joyful the tune is.
The contrast.
Of this murderous bastard who goes around smashing heads in.
Yeah.
What a piece of work.
Ding, ding. You know,
Yeah, bang, bang, Maxwell Silver.
yeah.
And that's what I love about the Beatles. They've got a great sense of humour.
Right.
That they can play with that genre. And look, when it comes to an album cover, what...
Can you beat that for iconic album covers?
Yeah, how many times has this been mucked with? You know, people have done things.
Yeah.
It's the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there in 2001, actually. And it was, so it was not long after my... it was just this December after 9/11, and my brother was living in London, so I went to London to have Christmas with my brother, and I went to Abbey Road, and it was just after George Harrison had died as well, because he died not long after that, not after 9/11, and so yeah, it was kind of like, you know, the flowers were everywhere. It was a good time to
go there and experience it. Yeah.
Well, good or bad time. I mean, you know, but.
Yeah, that morning I remember, because I was living in Las Vegas at the time, and with the amazing Jonathan, we're both living in the casino, and Jonathan had an early morning radio interview that morning, and Jonathan would always screw around with me, you know, say stuff just to get a rise out of me or whatever, and as we're driving, and he knew how much I loved the Beatles, and we're driving on the way to the radio interview, and he said, "Oh, did you hear the news today?" And I'm thinking, yeah, well, what are we going with here? And he goes, you know, George died. And I just brushed it off like, whatever, you know, George Harrison died. And nice link into the, have you heard the news today?
I know, oh boy.
Yeah, yeah. And then we're in the radio station, and then just as they start interviewing Jonathan, the radio announcer brought up, and that's when it hit me, and I was like, oh wow.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really, it really took me aback. It's like, you know, especially, you know, people that you grow up listening to as well, when you hear of, you know, a passing like that, it catches you off guard. And the fact that Jonathan had given me that little, and I brushed it off, you know, like, whatever, Jonathan, and then, yeah, it was...
It's amazing how many people still rate the Beatles as so high. I mean, not amazing because they're great, but like the Beatles were done by the time I was born, really. So like, they were finished. Like, and I think that's just epic that you can...
They got the staying power.
Man, so good. And I've seen Paul McCartney 3 times.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, he's the way that he's able to work a crowd too is something to behold. The first time I saw him was in Vegas at the Garden Arena, and I'm watching. There's all these, you know, like from the baby boomer generation, and a lot of security standing along the aisles. And there was one point in the concert, everyone was out dancing along with the security. Like everyone was into it. It was just like, this is a party, man.
Yeah.
This is like, you know, to be able to create that environment and take people back to their youth as well, you know. Well, me, it takes me back to my youth, even though I wasn't around when they were releasing the music.
It's quite funny. I remember a friend of my mum's from Red Cross, and she was English. She lived in Australia for, you know, since she was in her 20s. But I remember her. She grew up in Liverpool, and we were having a cup of tea or something at my mum's house, and Alexandra, this lady, friend of my mum's, and she's like, I had the Beatles, and she goes, yeah, I danced with John Lennon once back in Liverpool when we were teenagers. I'm like, get out of here. That's so casual to say that. Like, that's,
just drop that in there.
Before he was John Lennon too.
Yes.
Like, wow.
Yeah. It is interesting when you hear people talk about interactions with someone, you know, like John Lennon. Our neighbours, when I was a kid that lived up the road, he actually had a photo with John Lennon, and John Lennon was wearing the white, you know, the white suit, the long hair.
And what was it? Was it this suit?
Yeah. They saw him, and he was planting orchids with his feet, with his toes. Of course, that's what John Lennon would do.
Right.
Yeah, and they showed me some photos. They took some photos of him doing that, and then got the photo with him, and he was with Yoko, and it was in England at the time. And they said, yeah, he's a lovely guy. You know, they just had a lovely chat with him.
It's funny actually talk about John Lennon, which I feel like I'm doing the segue, but into what is probably my favourite book is. Which we were going to talk about, is Michael Caine's memoir. I think it was his first memoir, or autobiographical book called "What's It All About?"
Right.
Which is obviously from the movie Alfie, the song "What's It All About?" And he's got a great tale of him and John Lennon.
Oh, really?
In that book, and he talks about that he was, because it was later on when he was kind of a bit of a well-known actor. Now things were going well. I can't remember at what point it was, maybe just after Zulu or some movie he did. And John Lennon and he were both invited to an embassy somewhere. I've forgotten actually where it was, for a reception. And, the British government would show off these two very talented, well-known British performers. And they were both egos. I hadn't met John Lennon before, but we kind of hit it off. We were having a bit of a laugh. And John Lennon got really drunk. He was really drunk, and he goes, I went looking for him at one point, and I found him, I think he said, I found him in the bedroom of in this embassy or something like that, and he was pissing on the curtains in his bedroom, John Lennon, and he's like, what are you doing? And John Lennon's like, fuck them, they're rich.
That's great.
Yeah, so who's got that John Lennon story?
Yeah.
Michael Caine does. Michael Caine does. Yes. And of all the voices, it's funny. I was thinking about this because you had Rob Brydon on this, who I love.
Yes.
Rob Brydon, right?
Yes.
And Rob Brydon does like one of the best, if not the best, Michael Caine ever.
Right.
Right. And it's the one character voice impersonation I can't do.
Really?
I can sort of get, but I can't get him.
Come on, you got to do it now.
I never can. But I don't know why I can't do it, but it just doesn't live somewhere in my voice. It's not in there. I don't do it. And then when I hear someone else, I'm like, I want to. Yeah, well, I need to get. It's the one I've struggled with.
I think if you slowed it down a bit, and yeah.
See, I was in this place. I don't know. And John Lennon, he's pissed on the curtains. No, see, I can't do it. I could do a Rob Brydon impersonation better than I could
doing it. Yeah.
I could do. Rob Brydon is one of my favourites. Yeah, Joel. But I've always wanted to. But I know there are so many people who do it better than me, and you've got to.
And you're like, look, I'm going to leave it to them.
You don't want to be the guy who does it badly, so I don't. And I think I hear
but
other
a
people.
bad impression is very funny too.
Can be.
Yeah, it can be. Like
Frank Spencer? No.
but Rob Brydon's impression of Mick Jagger's impression of Rob Brydon's impression of Michael Caine. That is hilarious. We've deconstructed the.
That's too many levels.
Yeah.
I think the best impressions are like the ones that you don't expect. Like when people do their like Arnold Schwarzenegger's, for instance.
Yes.
They always go for get to the chopper stuff.
Yeah.
But the best Arnold Schwarzenegger ones are the ones where they just have quiet Arnold.
Yeah.
I think they're the better ones, where it's just quiet Arnold, not him going, It's better it's just, just here, just talking with people. It's this little, quiet, they're the better ones.
Yeah.
And you go,
the more natural ones. Yeah.
I got this little dog. It's great. I prefer those ones when people do that little stuff.
Rather than come on.
That's just
There's more sounds in that impression as opposed to specifics.
Yeah, they're the easy ones. But I don't. When it comes to voice, I don't call myself an impressionist because I don't work on it. Like I'd rather do great characters that are original.
Yeah.
But
it's funny you say that because I remember reading an interview with Jim Carrey, and he was talking about, because he was known for his unbelievable impressions.
Yeah.
And his physicality in the impressions as well. And he went to see Rich Little in Vegas, who, in the 60s, 70s, he's still playing Rich Little. And he would do all the roasts, the Dean Martin roasts and great impressions. And he went and saw, and Jim said he had one of these epiphany moments at a rich little performance in Vegas when Cary Grant was in the audience. And Rich goes up to Cary Grant in the audience and he's Cary Grant and doing the whole, and everyone's in hysterics, but Jim was just sitting there watching it thinking, who do I want to be in this life? Cary Grant or the guy impersonating Cary Grant?
Right.
And at that moment he said, I got to drop the act. And that's when he started exploring who he was comedically on stage and getting up and dying a lot of the time, just improvising, trying to figure out where his voice came from.
And because like for me, because like I just got back from the States, the Voice Arts Awards, and I met a lot of great voice actors. Some of them are doing great work on video games, animations, and I realised that I've got to a point now where those are they're like parlor tricks, but the best thing you can do is give them something of yourself. Like that's the most interesting thing, is that you can be as you. Like no one else can be you. Someone might impersonate you, but they're not you.
Right.
And sometimes the best character is just you.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to voice characters and things like that, the best character is just you acting. Just you being something. Or you go, okay. Or if you're going to be that, if they want Scottish, you go, I'll do that, but it's me. It's Scottish me.
Yes.
Because the only thing that no one can copy is that.
Yes.
And I think that's...
And it's authentic then too.
Yeah, I know. And authentic, it's such a buzzword, isn't it? That people go, I want to be my authentic self.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be authentic. And most people who say it are often very inauthentic.
Yes,
but
they're saying it because it sounds like what they... But genuinely, to be genuinely authentic, it's that's what's needed more now. But see, getting back to the whole thing about the influences and stuff that we were talking about earlier on is... Well, how do people find who they authentically are by figuring out how do I get the most amount of views or most amount of likes? Or that's out the window. So it's people pretending to be authentic.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's like, hashtag blessed, whatever. It's like, God, just enough. Yeah. I don't even know who these people are. And people, they go, oh, that's so-and-so from TikTok. I'm like, and what do they do?
And
they're on TikTok.
Yeah.
But what do they make? TikToks.
Yeah.
And what? I don't know. What's going to happen in 20 years?
Right.
Nothing. There'll be someone who used to be on TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no legacy.
Yeah, it is. Strange days in that regard.
I mean, and Michael Caine is one of my favourite actors. We were talking about the book, right?
Yes.
The book, Michael Caine when you watch Michael Caine, you're watching, there's Michael Caine there, right? And Michael giving you a different version of Michael Caine. But you believe whatever he does. Like Michael Caine goes, well, I'm going to be Alfred from Batman, right? He doesn't go, all right, well, I'm going to put on a hello, I'm Alfred. Yes, I'm Alfred. He goes, I don't want to bury another Wayne. He's like, I'm Michael Caine. Yeah. This is the Alfred. I believe that I am a guy who's been working with Bruce Wayne since he was a little boy, and I've been kind of his father figure. That's the important part of what I am, because that's it's not me being more Alfred-y. Right.
But the way that he can adapt Michael Caine within so many diverse roles too is great.
Yeah.
Like, you compare that to, say, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yeah.
And comedically, both him and Steve Martin bouncing off each other is brilliant.
And he's what I like about Michael Caine, and from his book, which I highly recommend, What's It All About, is it deals so much with him before acting.
Right,
like his life, and it shows it wasn't an easy life. Like there was a lot of struggle, and then things started to happen, but it's because he dealt with this, he dealt with that. Resilience is something I admire, and I think it's the most important thing to learn. And he went to the Korean War. He almost died of malaria. He was bedridden for months with malaria. He's a fascinating tale of struggle. His mother, he had what's the word? A secret brother, I believe, that he didn't know about. He was a severely disabled brother that his mother never told him about.
And what was put in a home?
Yeah, and she would visit him all the time, and he didn't know that she was going to visit this brother, and she And what a
yeah.
like a sort of a dark secret to a strange. Yeah, and that's what I love about that book, is because when you see Michael Caine being the artist that he is, I also see the years of weather that have made the man. Yeah, and that's what makes him. People don't know what he's been through, but they're like, gee, there's some character here. Yeah, well, character comes from experience, you know. Steve Martin, I love Steve Martin. He's amazing. I read his book.
Yeah, that's Born Standing Up.
Born Standing Up, and I'm like, it left me kind of cold, because I'm like, he made it look like it was really easy. It just felt like I did this, I worked in a theme park, got a gig, wanted to do stand-up, and then I was discovered, and it all happened.
Yeah.
And I was reading going, oh.
Where's the struggle?
It's like, I admire you less for how easy it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then you put it next to Michael Caine, you're like, wow, there's a story. You know?
And I don't know if it's a generational thing, but someone like Michael Caine, who's now 90 years old, born in 1933, that has come from that generation. Right, there was something about that generation that came before that's
through the war.
Yeah, what was experienced is like, it's like I tried doing a comedy routine about it, but I don't know. I was mainly making a point as opposed to getting to a big payoff at the end. But it was like I thought of my grandfather, who was born in 1908, and what he would have experienced throughout his life, like. Coming with the First World War and then the Depression. Oh, then after that, it was the Spanish flu, and then the Great Depression, and then the Second World War, and being told, hang on, I thought that was the war to end all wars,
And then there's Korea, Vietnam.
Right, and it just continues.
He was 4 years old when the Titanic sunk.
Right, yeah. And then getting to the age of 45, where that was the average life expectancy for someone at that time. So all your friends dying. And then getting to that old age of of experiencing all that. But, he was always a gentleman, and I learned so much as a kid from him. I just wish that I had known him when I was older, But the certain things that I got from him was, how to treat someone and just how to be a gentleman, how to be a decent, and that's what I try to be. It's like it's one thing to learn it.
You're a decent gentleman.
But it is very just to think back of what he went through, and he was someone that just got on with life too. He never spoke to me about any of that stuff, or really harped on about any of that. But it was like, and thinking back from Michael Caine, what he's gone through in his life too. It's an admirable thing to have him be the person that he is for what he's experienced.
Yeah, and that character, and then you know someone, you go, I like this person, they're interesting, I like what they do. And then if you peel back layers of that onion and you find the history behind it, you go, oh God, wow, yeah. No wonder you're so interesting. No wonder. I mean, you wonder if generations of kids who haven't struggled through anything, is anyone going to find them interesting? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's why we had a pandemic, so everyone can say, we went through that.
We survived the pandemic.
We went through that.
Yes.
Yeah, we did a lot of Zooming.
Yeah. There's a lot of Netflix and Uber Eats. We survived it.
No, it's not quite the blitzkrieg, is it? But, a lot of people died, but
Or as people say, it's all relative. Oh, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's all. It's your own. It was your own World War II.
Yeah.
Look, I find stories of struggle are fascinating, especially from people who don't just tell you about it all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's not their identity that they're always pushing.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I will talk about my struggles when asked about them.
Of course.
But I don't open with it. Like, I don't sit down with people and go, let me tell you what I've been through. Like, it's like, ew.
Sure.
Gross. Like I don't, and I don't live as a victim. You're a product of your past, and you are. This is you now, right? That's then, right? What are you now? What are you doing now? Everything I do doesn't relate to something back there.
Right.
Like this is,
And is that something that you feel is learned or something that you have to discover yourself?
Or some people never learn it, so some people can't do it. I mean, there are people, who I've met in my boots who are still angry. So, and they're bitter. That's the choice they're making every day. So yeah, there's nothing homogenous about a group of people who have been through things. Whether it be 9/11, whether it be Holocaust survivors, whatever. They're not homogenous.
Right.
They're not all the same. Some handle it in different ways. Some carry, some take what they went through and then they move on. Some carry victimhood forever. Some do, some don't. And that's you make those calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you say, you make those calls. It's your decision to am I going to play that part or am I going to, move on with something that's going to be healthy for you, your family, and everyone else.
And everyone you're in contact with.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
Right.
And that's why the people that I admire are the people who are stepping forward. Moving on, stepping forward in this kind of way, in this kind of forward-moving motion.
Yes, yes.
Because if you're not, if you don't do that, you'll get hit by a car at some point.
Yeah. Good metaphor. Yeah.
That's what happens.
Well, speaking of discovering this in 1985, which was the year that your father passed.
Yeah.
Movies, I assume, became a big thing because in 1985, one of the great movies, Back to the Future. My
favourite movie, always. And maybe it was good timing. Maybe this is the movie I needed. I don't know in 1985, but I love this film. I love it because I do love time travel movies. I don't know why. I think it's the idea of if everyone has that. If you could go back in time, what would you do? What would you do? And you go, I'd probably get the sports almanac or whatever. My son, you go, what do you do? He goes, I'd invent the iPhone. I'm like, well, how would you start with that? He's like,
some would go, well, I would do what Steve Jobs did and go, I want this, go make it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Because every time I say, I could invent the computer, and I go, I don't know how computers work now. So
I don't even know how an abacus works.
Yeah, I can't invent the abacus. But I love it. And also, Michael J. Fox was great. He was so great. Right. The cast was great. But the film holds up so well now.
Unbelievably.
Obviously what we would now call CGI, the effects.
Still when the car flies in at the end and roads, we don't need roads. It still looks great.
Where's that kid? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think I just love I don't know why I love it so much. I mean, the acting is just done right. It's not overdone. It's done enough.
It's pitch perfect.
Pitch right for comedy. Yeah. It's just right. Visually,
even though Crispin Glover edges on of playing it farcical at times, it still works.
It does work. Yeah. And I think it's got the right villain.
With Biff,
and it's got all that underdog stuff and the tech as well. I think I was asked if I could have any car in the world, what would it be? And it would look just like that. It would be the DeLorean, but maybe the interior would have been fit out by Tesla, so it's more modern. But I could totally drive that around town.
I wasn't I had dyslexia when I was a kid, so I wasn't a big reader. However, a book that I bought was the biography of John DeLorean because of the DeLorean car. And my auntie's husband name was John, and I'd just got the book. So I was talking to him the whole time and showing him the whole, and he was so patient with me as a kid. And I hadn't even read the book. But
there are a lot of Johns,
But I understand the impact of this film that it had on you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the trilogy, so you've got the three of them, and they're all great. The middle one was definitely just the bridge between.
Right.
But I still loved
the hoverboard. It was great.
I still loved it for the whole thing. But the original is just so great, and the idea of going back to see your parents as teenagers is kind of one of those things that's.
And then catching your parent with binoculars perving on your mother. Such a weird, when you think about it, it's such a weird scenario.
Apparently this was offered to Disney, right? And because you know how the mother kind of is like meets Marty McFly, who she thinks his name is Calvin Klein, and she's kind of trying to hit on him because he's a good-looking kid.
Yeah.
And you know, that's kind of that awkwardness in the film. It's like, and apparently they offered the movie to Disney, and Disney like, I don't think so.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
This is an incest movie.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
And a teenager that hangs out with an old man, a single old man. What's going on here?
It's nuts, but it was so good, and it just I think it gave me such it still gives me great memories of my childhood, because I feel like even though for me 1985 was the year I lost my father, it was also one of the greatest times to grow up
Culturally.
Yeah, like everything was colourful and fun, and the music was happening. Like there was so much good music, you know. So I still have great memories of that time in my life, that age, even though it was
what you were going through.
Yeah. But it's good that I can go back to 1985 with positive things.
Yes.
You know, and I don't think about 1985 as being the darkest moment of my life, even though it was kind of sad. It was sad. But maybe that movie gives me. This is very deep. I think I should be lying on a couch.
No, please.
But maybe that movie, I love it so much because it was like this ray of positivity
And this escape into this world.
and a massive escape.
Yes.
Well, that's it. You know, you go back in the future, and you go. It's maybe little Simon had these ideas.
Yeah.
Love that film.
Yeah, it's and like you said, it is a film that holds up today because I saw it at the Orpheum just a couple of months ago on the big screen, packed cinema. You know, the reactions from the audience, like genuine hard laughter throughout, kids laughing. You know, who aren't getting the here comes the bit with the that's fun. Like genuine reactions, and then like the epic scene when George McFly punches out Biff. Everyone's roaring and applauding in the cinema, and afterwards the excitement of the kids. Like, did you see when the car was flying at the end and it took off? Oh my God! It was this joyous communal experience.
The excitement.
You know?
I mean, my kids love it. You know, and they're like 16 and 13. They love it. It's a great movie. I remember going to see the second one when I was, I can't remember what year that was exactly, but I was on like a school kind of camp thing up the coast. And it was one of those things where they'd organised, said, okay, we've got this school camp thing happening, but we're going to take you guys to the movies as well. We're going to go to the movies during school camp. Great. And it was going to be Back to the Future 2. And oh my God, everyone was like losing their mind.
This is the best camp ever?
I think it was about year 7 or 8. I think it would have been. So it would have been about 87, 88 or something like that. And oh my God. And we all were so pumped. It was all boys, and everyone's just gone nuts. And then we saw the movie, and everyone's just jumping around like they're on hoverboards, carrying on, because it's just a bunch of 13-year-olds going nuts. And it had that effect of this, oh my God.
And having the context of the first one then to go and see a sequel.
And then they tease towards the third one, and you're like, oh my God, I need more. Like, it's not very often now that you go to the movies and you'll be like, oh my God, I need more.
Yes.
I need more. Like, it feels like they just throw too much at us at once. And that was great to go, we're gonna make you wait. We're gonna make you wait for it. And, and you're like, oh.
The actual video when it came out, I was so excited when it came out on video. And in fact, I saved up all my money. And this was before they were releasing it to buy in the stores. The video store you would have to go to get it. But
to rent it?
To rent it.
Yeah.
But I saved up all my money and went up to the video store and said, I have to own this, I have to buy it. So I figured out a deal with the guy that, and it was still like a new release going out, but he probably took pity on me. He saw how obsessed I was. So he said, yep, it's coming back tomorrow. And it was on a Saturday. And I remember our family had to travel off that day to my father's property. So I went up there and there was a director's chair and I just sat there and waited for the person to return it. But every time a video would come back, I'd be, is that it? He goes, that's not it. I'm like, and I'm like, my dad's waiting, I gotta go. And then eventually it came back and I was so blown away to own it, to actually have it. Because
on a VHS cassette tape.
VHS cassette. And it had the hard cover, and I remember talking to a kid at school about that. I got it, and then it started spreading around at school. So all the kids went
Joel's
to
got it.
Yeah. And we had like a mufti day coming up at school. So all the kids went to the TV and said, can we watch Back to the Future? Joel has it on VHS, can we? And so I brought it into school and you know when they roll in the TV and we're all the kids, and we put it on, the teacher said, no, this is all, the teacher hadn't said, this is all right for us. And, yeah, it's PG, look, it's PG. But
nothing dodgy.
But then when he says shit in it, my teacher just gave me the worst look across. And then again when it kept on happening, but you know, we were so into it, you couldn't
back
pull
then,
the plug.
that was pretty filthy.
Yeah.
I loved that when we were at school, that you know they would literally roll a television into the room on a big thing.
On a big thing, on a big metal frame, and it had the tape player, the VHS tape player.
Or the alternative being that they had a TV that was hooked up to some weird infrared system, and all the tape machines, videotape machines, were in the library.
Yes, that's right.
And they put it in, and then and
it would never work. And it was a massive remote too that they had, and I'd press the remote.
Yeah. That was probably my naughtiest moment at school. It was in high school when our art teacher it was like everyone had gone on holidays. There was nothing to do. And he's like, we're going to watch this video. We're going to watch a movie or something boring. It was awful. It was like a video about Rodin, the sculptor or something, sculptor. And I'm like, this sucks. And he's like got the remote and it hooks up to the library and the thing and whatever. And everyone's just like, this sucks. And I'm like, sir, I've got to go to the bathroom. So I went, okay, he's going to the bathroom. So I went to the library and I said, oh yeah, Mr. Comerford said the remote's not working and could he get another remote? I went, oh, okay. They gave me the remote. And I was up in the back going, rewind.
Oh, fantastic.
And he's like, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
Great.
I got in trouble.
Oh, he found out?
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, that's almost secondary to, I think, a prank that I believe some uni students played. You know, on George Street, how opposite the cinemas there was the Scientology had the big screen with a volcano, and it was a big video screen.
Hang on. You weren't involved in this?
No, I wasn't involved in that, no.
This was, please tell.
Yeah, so it was next to Planet Hollywood or whatever.
Yes.
Big screen.
Yes.
And apparently some pranky uni students or someone
back in the 90s
got in and hooked up a porno.
Yes.
A porno playing on the big screen to everyone on George Street. Kids, families, everyone going to the movies like, what?
Yeah. I remember that was like folklore. This was before the internet, so you heard about it in school.
No one had a phone out to video that or whatever.
But that screen, that thing is still there, and the screen's like still flapping in the wind. It's just
there?
It's just this torn screen.
I think it caught on fire at some point.
Right.
It could have been because there was a volcano on it.
Right.
That would have done it.
Yeah.
But that was like apparently Scientologists had that. That was their thing. To advertise Dianetics.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Which would have made people want to put a porno on there more.
Right. You know? Exactly.
Yeah, it would have been great.
But it's still there. That big screen there, and you can see where the mirror was, how they did it, because it would have been projected up onto the back mirror that then reflected back onto the screen, and the mirror is still in there.
God.
Yeah.
Weird. That was back,
That was back in the day in George Street where if you were wearing a pair of Jordans, you were getting rolled.
Yeah.
Walking along.
Do people roll people for shoes anymore?
I don't know, but Jordans are sought after. Like the Jordan 4s from back in the day, they're a hot commodity these days.
I might roll some people for some Jordans.
There was that alleyway that was down the side where the Don Quixote, home of the suckling pig. Remember that was always an advert. That and Alibaba was an advert that would always be on at the George Street cinemas.
Yeah, I used to do a bit about. I love going to the movies, and I love the shit ads they put on before
Val Morgan production.
Val Morgan, but I always said after the movies, why don't you go to the suckling pig? And those when I go after the movies. Why don't you get your tyres fixed at Jack's Tyres? And you're like, what? After the movies? At like 10:30 at night, I'm going to go to the tyre place? I don't think so. But my kids and I want to go to the movies now, especially in Sydney. There's one that's like, there's an ad that comes up and he goes, it's late at night and the baby's sick. Where are you going to get medicine? Crow's Nest Late Night Chemist. That's my favourite one. It's late at night and the baby's sick.
We're all listening now.
So, oh God, yeah, you've got me hooked. You've hooked me in.
Yeah, you had me at baby.
Yeah, the baby's sick. What are you gonna do? I don't know. Wait till the morning. I don't know. Whatever.
Just getting back to something you said before, which was it's funny with this podcast. I'm always thinking on like you say something and I think, I've got something to elaborate on that. That's a great thing. But then I don't want to interrupt you, so we'll keep on talking.
And you forget.
And then 10 minutes later, you're going, what was that? Oh, that was the thing. And that's what I've just thought of.
What's the thing?
The anticipation of a film when it would come out, right? And before you even seen the film, the anticipation that we would have walking into a cinema and seeing the poster for a film back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And I brought this along to show an example of that. Drew Struzan, who made some of the most iconic posters that we had from our childhood.
Like the painted ones,
Indiana Jones, and he did the Star Wars, and even like films like Coming to America.
Like National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah, that style, And this was the artwork for the poster there.
That
look
gets
at that,
me excited.
Right? Just seeing that artwork there.
I know.
And then there were like the other ones, the different brief that he had of the lead into the.
Don't like those.
But just the simplicity of this, and seeing a poster like that for when we would walk in, you see the light box in the cinema,
and it just makes you go, what's the fire? What's going on?
You have it. But the one thing though that always confused me with this, because I had the VHS cover, I would study it, is the dimensions of the car and the angle of the car with the screen. I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah, right.
Like, look at the.
So what am I? Yeah, I'm trying to work out what I'm looking at.
That's the front of the DeLorean. That's and anyone that's listening to this, just look up the poster for Back to the Future for the first one.
It does feel like the screen
something's out of whack, right?
Should be more
angled, right?
Yeah.
And then I get it, like that's the stream of the tires, but
the car's over there.
But the two, it's a little bit out of whack. And I love Drew Struzan, but maybe that was a good thing. Like it just kept me guessing.
It's so cool. And wasn't he just perfect for it? And you know what was so sad when you hear about how the recast that happened.
Oh, Eric Stoltz.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God, that's heartbreaking.
I know. You're filming a movie for like a month and then that doesn't
Because Eric Stoltz he actually filmed a lot of it.
A lot of it. And they actually used stuff like over the shoulder
back
shots.
Of him.
Yeah, with Biff, the scene in the diner. Yeah.
Isn't that just heartbreaking? Because you're telling everyone you're in it, and you're doing all the thing and whatever, and then
you can't. But you've been to Universal Studios, right?
When I was a kid.
Did you do the backlot tour? And when you, so how old were you when you went?
I would have been about.
Or what year would it have been?
Well, it was after my 85. It would have been about 80. I think it was about 86, 87.
Wow! So you went through at that point as a kid after having seen Back to the Future, and you're in the Clock Tower Square where they filmed. Like, were you expecting that to happen, or on the tour? And by the way, this is the Clock Tower.
And you're like, Well, I mean, there was so much. I mean, I think back then, what I was really excited about was seeing Kit from Knight Rider. Like, that was right there. I'm like, wow, this is the best.
It's funny, you and I are from the same generation here. So, like, Knight Rider, A-Team, Miami Vice, Magnum P.I., all of these 80s. But seeing that Clock Tower Square, the first time, and knowing, this is where they did Gremlins too, it's the same, and then later on Bruce Almighty they did from that. But then going back, like, I think one of the first films that they did there was To Kill a Mockingbird. But that was the town square from that.
Oh gosh, wow! I didn't realise that.
So to be in this iconic, but the thing that really got me was on the backlot to it, which was no mention of it. No one even paid it any attention. Was the two grand entrances to the Lion Estates.
The Lion Estates
in where in Back to the Future,
right.
You remember that and then he puts the car behind the bush off to the side.
And no one mentions it. Right?
I was on the backlot. I'm like, oh my God, that's Lion Estates.
Right.
And I remember calling my dad up to tell him I was on the backlot to it, and he was like, "Oh wow, yeah, I remember that." It was like
I didn't even think of that. And that was cool how they you see it, where they're like, we're going to build this estate here, and then you go Back to the Future 2, and it's like it's full
dirt road.
And it's full of houses.
Yes.
And it's the same entrance.
Yes.
But it's now all looks like Kellyville.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. No.
But just seeing that on the back lot of the Lion Estates, just sitting there, I'm like, wow. And it was just butt up against something. Just there it is. Just put it over there. No mention of it. And a friend of mine whose partner works at the at Universal in development for for doing special events and stuff. I remember asking, I said, the Lion Estates thing, is that still? No, that weather beaten and just wore away. You know?
That does happen. Like I met my wife working at Fox Studios Australia,
Right.
Which is we had a little theme park thing. Remember for a little
Initially,
while.
yeah.
Initially, and now Fox Studios Australia is called Disney Studios Australia, because they bought Fox. But when we met there was a little theme park thing going on. We worked on the Titanic experience. All aboard, and and there was also the set from Babe, Pig in the City,
Right.
which was the one they shot it all on, and it was still there. So they had that as part of a walkthrough. You could go and
Experience,
check
yeah.
out. I mean, why wouldn't you? They got eaten by cockatoos, like literally.
That's an Australian way to go. If it wasn't that
picked apart.
kangaroos,
The cockatoos basically picked it apart because it was like polystyrene covered in
Sure,
stucco
yeah,
or whatever
yes,
it was, and then it was
yeah.
made look great. But the cockatoos were like, I can get through this, and
Yeah.
they just ripped it apart and they're
Wow.
like pulling it down.
Yeah.
You've wrecked it,
Yeah,
cockatoos.
ruined. Thanks.
Thanks for wrecking everyone's fun. But I would say that Rupert Murdoch probably wrecked everyone's fun anyway. So, it was a pretty lame theme park.
Yeah, I was living in the States at the time, so I missed out on all of but I heard of it, the Fox Studios theme park.
I met a lot of good friends on that. We worked on the Titanic. It was James Cameron's Titanic: The Experience.
And how was that experience?
Well, it was an experience, and you'd go on to what looked like a bit of a movie set. Like the idea was like, hey, you people are going to be extras in the movie Titanic,
Right.
aren't you lucky? And then it's sort of like, then they're not extras, and then it's like they're on the boat thing, and you walk up, it's all aboard, and you board the ship. It was kind of cool in bits. You'd go into like a third class common room, and you'd get a speech from the purser, who I did that as well.
Right.
He was like, welcome
You were
aboard
the purser.
the RMS Titanic, and it's going to be a great voyage. And then you'd hit an iceberg, and it was all crazy. And that was the.
Yeah.
And then some people would go to the lifeboats, and half the people would go and die in the boiler room.
Oh, right.
So fun. Either way, you got Celine Dion at the end. So
Nice. And one guy had to hit the propeller on the way down.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. It was funny because when we were working there, they were filming Star Wars 1, 2, 3
Right.
at Fox Studios, and we were hanging out. I was in my sailor's first officer's uniform or whatever, and this skinny old English guy came up where we're hanging out, having our break, and he goes. He walked up from the professional backlot to where we were, and he's like, "Oh," he goes, "What movie are you shooting here?" And we're like, "Oh no, it's not a movie. It's like a ride thing based on a tragedy where 2,000 people die. A bit of fun." And he's like, "Oh, okay." I said, "What are you doing?" And one of the guys who was a complete nerd in our cast, he's like, "Oh my God, do you know who that is?" And I'm like, I don't know, the voice sounds familiar, but I'm not sure. And he's like, that's Anthony Daniels. That's C-3PO.
Yes.
And I went, oh yeah, that's the voice I'm hearing. Because this guy's like, oh, I'd like to see some more if that's possible. And then we knew who he was. We went, come on, we'll get you on the show. Come through.
Yeah,
no worries.
by all means. Yeah.
And he came through.
You'll get on a lifeboat.
Yeah, and he came through. And he did. He went to the lifeboat. But and I was doing the whole, well, all aboard, welcome, there, say thank you very much, and blah, blah, blah. And and then you hit the iceberg, the whole room shakes, and there's like porthole video screens that look like the iceberg's there and stuff. And then everyone's like, oh, to the lifeboats. And Anthony Daniels just going, I've got one thing I'm known for, and I'm going to do it. And as everyone's shuffling off, tourists, everyone, and he's like going, oh no, we're all going to die. oh dear, oh no. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so good. That's and he's going up the stairs to lifeboats going, oh dear, I'm too young to die. Oh.
Just committed to the part.
I'm like, thank you, sir. Thank you for your service. That was great. Yeah, it was funny. Sometimes we'd have, it was a failed venture, that theme park. And sometimes we'd have a whole cohort of non-English speaking tourists come through.
Right.
I remember they're like all Korean. Like, and they didn't speak any English. Now we were told that you have to be more physical because they don't understand English. So I'm up there. I've got a speech to do.
Yes.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, boy, yeah. Have you charades? Or,
Yeah, so I'd be like really gesticulating a lot, going, oh, blah, 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 and they're just going, okay, I don't know what you're saying. and it's happened a lot, and it got to the point where like, I don't know what's going on. At one point, we had a big group come through. I'm like, okay. I said, does anyone here speak the Queen's English? Does anyone speak English? Anyone? Do you speak English? Please raise your hand if you speak English. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does anyone understand what I'm saying?
Blink.
Anyone, please? And they were like, no one,
Wow.
nothing. And I'm like, all right, motherfuckers. and I just swore. And as I go to the lifeboat, so you just pass on. The next match you go, no one speaks English. And they go, all right, you bastards. It was more colourful than that,
yes,
actually. Yeah. And,
that's great.
yeah, and we did that once. And one of the guys who was a boat boy, being a boat boy, sorry, boof. There was one guy who was as a boat boy, and I said, no one speaks English, and he just let rip with the foulest language all the way through, going,
Fantastic.
Hey, effing this, effing that, get effing lifeboats, you effing what's it, whatever. And at the end, the whole thing finishes, and they're getting off. And he told me this later. He goes, this little lady goes, I speak some English. He's like, okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
How long did that last for? That
I think it opened in 1999 and closed in 2002. So it was like 3 years max.
Right.
And the numbers just went do.
Right, yeah.
We went from doing like 40 shows a day to like 2 shows a day. It was just
the reviews were very offensive language used in this.
filthy. Who knew the Titanic was such a cuss fest?
I know. Well, I guess it was historically accurate. They were going to pass.
Yeah, they were working class people.
Yeah.
No.
But speaking of like, this is very ominous that a friend of mine sent me a message last night. Jim Hare, great director Jim,
yes.
sent a meme to me of Back to the Future and said if Marty McFly went back in time today, he would arrive in 1994. And it was such a, to get my head around to think, like if we think of 1994, not that much of a difference, really. Like if you take 85 to 55, that's a big jump, right?
Technology, fashion,
culturally,
and what's acceptable, what's considered conservative, or.
But if you think of like exponential growth from '94 to now, it's like a million times more than the growth of technology was between 55 and 85.
Yeah.
And I kind of went down a rabbit hole thinking about this last night. At any time, like if you think of 1920 compared to 1930 compared to 1940, they're distinct looks. Like if you were to see a photo or a film, you could say, or to 1950, you could say that's 1930, that's 1920. Or if you went to 1960, 1970, 1980, all very distinct looks. Like there's an image that comes to mind of fashion, of music, of cars, of furniture, of each of those. But if you go 94 to 2004, or if you go 2004 to 2014, or 2014 to 2024, and I'm thinking, why is this so? And then I thought, well, what was the game changer in 94? And then I thought, the internet, technology. And if you look at there was more of a collective pre-94 culturally, but everything is so spread out now, and you can't get one thing to define a sound or define a look. And we're always going back since 94 onwards. Have you noticed how much more we've gone back to 80s fashion, to 70s bell bottoms, to even beyond that when the whole hipster thing came through with the beards and kind of 1920s kind of a...
Well, that's right. I reckon the internet created more homogeny, because what it did was we all had access to all this stuff, which meant that it all just sort of washed into each other.
The identity got diluted.
Yeah, very much so. And so that it sort of goes around like this big swirling pool, as opposed to a block that was untouched by anything.
Outside influence.
All it was is maybe a newspaper or magazine. People go, that's the look, and I'll and that was there was no kind of a bit of this, bit of that.
Right.
Was there? I don't know. I mean,
Well,
that's,
no. I think you're on the money there.
but also, I guess, yeah. I mean, the internet. God, we can get 1,000 years talking on the internet, but how it created a world where anyone could say anything, or any opinion could be broadcast. But it also, so it's good because it also meant that everyone should be accepted in their own way, because everyone could be seen. So therefore, the homogeny, LGBTQ or and all that, like, it became more part of every day for everyone, because you're more exposed to people you would not be exposed to. So therefore, it became more mainstream thanks to the carriage of the internet. However, so did dickheads with bad opinions and horrible things to say. So, so maybe that is the internet.
Yeah, the internet.
It's washed us out.
Yeah. So if we had Back to the Future made today, it wouldn't have the same impact as it did back then. It'd
be a bit more like Hot Tub Time Machine.
Right. Yeah. I didn't see that, but yeah.
Yeah, not quite as great a time travel movie, but a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
Back to the Future. Yeah, the 50s. Such a look.
Right.
The music, my God, that's it. And it wouldn't work now. You're right, it wouldn't work.
So, of its time. Well, I'm glad to have grown up during that time, as I know you. You to be able to have had that pre-internet world, to have know the difference. It's
I wouldn't.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you grow up in your time, you become what you are because of what you grew up in. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I'd started growing up now.
Right.
I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, because I was listening to a lot of radio and radio funny people.
Yes.
Who made me go, I'm going to do funny voices, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and that's it set me off. If I grew up now, I might aspire to be a TikToker.
An influencer.
Yeah. I mean, I still do aspire to be an influencer.
Yeah. Well, your book, you have there was a great influence I took from that book. So
better to be influential than an influencer.
Yeah. Good point. You should write that down. I think that's
for my next book.
For your next meme to put up online.
For my next dank meme.
Well, it's been a pleasure, mate. And before we go, though, for anyone watching this, I have to say, I love the Christmas tree that's still up after all this time after Christmas. I'm in the same predicament at the moment. My Christmas tree is still up. I still put on the lights at night for it.
Well, look, they're still on.
Yeah.
It's because I've got solar power. I feel I can throw that money away.
Yes, it's justified.
It's looking sick, man. It's looking so tired.
Have you kept on watering it?
I try to.
Yeah.
The cat's been playing with the balls.
Oh, well, there you go. It's something for the cat to... Yeah. And Cat made an appearance and then...
She did, she went.
Yes.
Edna, the hairless wonder cat. Yeah. It would have been good if I had her here, because I could have looked very much like a Bond villain.
Yes.
Patting my hairless cat.
Yeah, would have been perfect. Oh, well.
Now you must die, Mr. Bond. With that.
Well, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you for taking the time to chat and be so giving. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.